All right, part 2. And this time I'm going to talk about the Christian consumerism mindset. And just a disclaimer, I'm not saying that if you like collecting Christian books or you love listening to Christian music and Christian YouTube and Christian podcast and Christian this, Christian that you're sinning. I'm not saying that, okay? I'm just saying check the balance between how much you consume and how much you actually commit. Now, let me explain or give this kind of analogy first. We are usually... our hearts are revealed based on how we serve. When we keep thinking of how to serve certain people, that shows how much we love them. For example, have you noticed sometimes there are some people, I'm not saying who, but there are many people actually, when church friends call them, they don't want to go. But if their worldly friends call them, they go. Even if it's in another town, in another district, in another state, they're willing to travel for their friends or barkada, worldly barkadas outing, but they're not willing to travel just, a short distance to get to church. Things like that. There is an inconsistency or an imbalance in your commitment, and that reveals how much you love certain people. But this can also be true for how you view church and how you desire to help the church and contribute to the church. Now, what do I mean? I have experienced being so blessed being in a church where people desire to serve, desire to really contribute. That has been such a blessing in my life. And I've also seen churches wherein members don't care so much about contributing, they just care about consuming. And so, for example, if you love reading books, you buy Christian books, you read all the articles, you read 9 Marks, you read Desiring God, you read the Gospel Coalition, you read, Together for the Gospel, you read all John MacArthur blogs, and all Justin Peters blogs, and etc., etc. You might be equipping yourself well, and that's great, but are you sharing them with people? Are you teaching people? Are you trying to mentor people to learn more the way you're learning? Or are you keeping everything to yourself? If you are, let's say, a sound tech guy, I don't know what it's called, a sound engineer, audio engineer. All right, so you're great at your craft, but are you thinking of how to help maybe the church audios, or are you thinking of how to maybe, if you're a musician, how can my musicality help in church? Maybe I can help with the worship, maybe I can help this or that. There's so many ways. If you are, let's say you're a writer and you love writing, have you ever thought of being part of the content creators team for your church? And maybe you can work together with those who read a lot, those, the first example I gave, the people who read books, maybe you can talk about it together and then do something about that. There's so many ways to contribute. There are people who, for example, there are people who, and we're Filipinos, right? There's so many Filipinos who think of their families all the time. They work so that they can have sweldo or salary, and then they send the salary to their families. You see their love for their families because they work for their family. It's not really for them, it's for their family. And you can say the same thing for a lot of Christians who go to church. Are you working so hard for your spiritual family, or are you working just for yourself, and the spiritual family, I just attend and I just let them take care of whatever needs are there without me thinking of how I can contribute? That's a challenge that I think everyone should think of. And it's not just finances. Of course, the finances is there, do you give to the church? Do you give offering to the church? Are you generous with your finances? But it goes beyond that, because I know a lot of people who are struggling with their finances. They say, I feel so bad, I don't have enough money for myself, how can I give to the church? You've got skills, you've got talents, you've got time. Maybe you can contribute those to the church. And church leaders should not feel bad that people cannot give money and they have to give skill instead. In fact, I would say church leaders should be rejoicing and grateful for not how much people can contribute in terms of skill or money, but church leaders should rejoice at the thought that their members desire to serve in whatever capacity, whatever way. I think that's the goal. It's to rejoice at the desire to serve. And we have to keep fighting the Christian consumerism mindset. And one way to do that, and I'm not saying, all churches should stop uploading everything. I'm not saying that. I'm not, because I benefit from John MacArthur. I benefit from Justin Peters. I benefit from 9 Marks. So I want them to keep uploading, of course. But I hope that we don't end up being Christian consumers, but we end up becoming Christian contributors to your local church. All right. So yes, I want to hear from 9 Marks. I want to listen to John MacArthur. I want to hear from Justin Peters. I love listening to those guys. But at the same time, what I learned from all of them, I also want to contribute. I want to give of myself and whatever I have, whatever I've learned, whatever skills I have, to go to the local church also. So I try to help, of course, your biological family for a lot of Filipinos, but also your spiritual family, which is also something that glorifies God and honors God a lot. And I cannot emphasize or overemphasize, I cannot exaggerate how much benefit other people can glean from you. So never underestimate how much you can contribute. A lot of people don't want to contribute because they feel that they are flawed. They feel that they're not good enough to serve. And can we just, oh my goodness, if you think you're not good enough to serve, please don't forget that Peter denied Christ 3 times. If there's one guy who should feel that he's not good enough, it should have been Peter. Okay? So if you have not done what Peter has done, all right, then you can serve. And so going back, I want to talk to church leaders. If you're church leaders, how are you intentionally finding ways to improve the skills of your members so that you can faithfully, intentionally equip them to do ministry? Are you spending enough time mentoring? Now let me explain. When it comes to church leaders, now I'm going to shift back to church leaders. And if you're a church member, you got to hear this as well. Dear church leaders, if you really think of your time, how much time do you spend counseling and trying to help the broken members of the church versus the amount of time you spend mentoring? Mentoring is basically empowering those who are not, quote unquote, as broken as those who need the counseling help. So these are mature in the faith, they want to serve, and you're equipping them, you're mentoring them, you're teaching them how to preach, how to lead Bible studies, how to do discipleship, the how-tos, the skills. Are you intentionally teaching them the skills they need so that, quote unquote, you are making yourself replaceable? And that's the goal. The goal is never to try to keep your position for as long as possible. The goal is to train people so that you become replaceable. That, I think, is the call, and that is what defines success in ministry. It's not when you have secured your position. Your goal is not to secure your position in church. Your goal is supposed to make yourself replaceable so that the position will always exist. Because if there's no one there to replace you, when you're gone, the position disappears. And so you'll fail as a minister. At the end of the day, the ministry should outlive us. That should be the goal. And I hope this is an eye-opener for a lot of churches. I hope this is something that challenges everybody. Let's not be Christian consumers, but let's be Christian contributors. If you're a church leader, you're not supposed to just keep doing the ministry by yourself. You're supposed to equip the saints to do the ministry with you. God bless you guys.